There are things in this world that feel permanent, not because they are important, but because they are familiar. A movie line repeated for decades, a logo seen thousands of times, a map studied in school. These details become anchors, reference points that ground us in reality. We do not question them because we do not need to. They are part of the background of existence, stable, reliable, unchanging. And that is precisely why it is so disturbing when they change. The Mandela effect becomes most unsettling when it appears in places where certainty should be absolute: popular films, global brands, and basic geography. These are not obscure facts buried in history. They are things people interact with repeatedly, across years, sometimes across their entire lives. Yet millions of people report the same experience, returning to something deeply familiar, only to find that it is subtly but unmistakably different. A famous movie quote no longer exists in the form everyone remembers. A logo is missing a detail that feels impossible to forget. A geographical feature appears misplaced, altered, or entirely wrong. At first, people assume error, then coincidence, then confusion. But when the same discrepancies appear again and again, across unrelated areas of culture and knowledge, the explanation begins to feel insufficient. Because these are not random mistakes. They are systematic shifts in shared reality. And once you notice them, they begin to appear everywhere. Films are among the most commonly reported sources of Mandela effect experiences. This is not accidental. Movies are watched repeatedly. Lines are memorized. Scenes are quoted, parodied, and embedded into collective culture. When a remembered line no longer exists, the shock is immediate. People do not remember the idea of the line. They remember the sound of it, the tone, the context. And yet, the line is gone, replaced by something similar, but wrong. Logos present an even deeper problem. Corporate branding is designed to be consistent, precise, and globally standardized. Changes are documented. Redesigns are announced. And yet, many Mandela effect logo discrepancies are not redesigns at all. They are quiet differences that supposedly never existed. People remember symbols, shapes, colors, even typography that the official record claims were never there. The discomfort comes not from uncertainty, but from recognition. Seeing the current logo feels unfamiliar, as if it belongs to a slightly different world. Geography introduces a more profound level of unease. Some people report that continents appear shifted, that countries feel misplaced, that distances seem wrong. These are not people unfamiliar with maps. Many describe long-term knowledge, education, or professional familiarity with geography. And yet, when they look again, something feels off. These changes are rarely dramatic. Instead, they feel like fine adjustments, the kind of modifications that would occur if a system were being corrected rather than rebuilt. Taken together, films, logos, and geography form a disturbing pattern. The Mandela effect appears most often in shared reference systems, things humanity uses to orient itself in reality: stories, symbols, maps. If reality were to fracture, these would be the first places where the cracks would appear. At this point, the Mandela effect stops being a curiosity and becomes a challenge to memory, a challenge to history, a challenge to the assumption that reality is fixed. If movies can change, if symbols can shift, if maps can subtly rearrange themselves without warning, then what does that say about the stability of the world we live in? Some argue that these discrepancies are harmless psychological quirks amplified by the internet. But that explanation fails to address the emotional weight people describe. The sense of wrongness. The feeling that something deeply familiar has been quietly replaced. Others believe these cultural glitches are not errors, but evidence. Proof that reality is layered, edited, or converging. That what we experience is not the only version that has ever existed, only the one that remains. Perhaps these changes are not happening to reality, but within it. Perhaps reality is not breaking, it is updating. And if that is true, then the Mandela effect may be the only moment when ordinary people catch a glimpse of the process. A brief flicker where the past fails to align perfectly with the present. A reminder that what feels permanent may only be temporary. That what feels familiar may not always stay that way. Because once you realize that even the smallest details of reality can change, you are forced to confront a terrifying possibility. That the world you remember and the world you live in now are not exactly the same place.